Everyone's talking about the big game upcoming on Friday. It's not game one of the World Series. It's the Canadian women's national team taking on Switzerland. With all due respect, it is a big game for the Canadian women trying to get back on track after losing their last game 3-0 to the United States, and their manager Casey Stoney calling out the group at that time as well. Was that an appropriately timed message? Because oftentimes recent managers of the women's national team, Ollie, have kind of treated the team with kid gloves to a certain degree. But now there's a little bit of tough love. And I think from it, there's going to be a bigger expectation on not just a win, but the way that they play, a top performance as well in both games for this upcoming window.
Yeah, I think it was the right time. I think Casey Stoney gave the team some, a little bit of a grace period in terms of trying to, introduce herself as a coach, rebuild a bit of trust after what happened at the Olympic Games, and rebuild the confidence of the team to a certain extent. But I think there has to come a point where you say, okay, this is international football. Like, we need some performances. We need to set some standards. And I clearly don't think that those were met in the performance against the United States. Whether or not Canada loses to the US, there's a certain kind of minimum bar that you want to see them meet, even against a top team like that, albeit a team that was under strength themselves. And I thought they were a long way off that. And I think Casey Stoney seems to have felt that way as well. So it's time, I think, to maybe give a bit more tough love to this squad, maybe start to make some bigger decisions, or at least give consideration to making those bigger decisions in terms of players who have, possibly been around a long time, but haven't been performing at the level that's required to really see this team compete at the next World Cup. And the big advantage that she's still got is a lot of time to build towards that World Cup. We're still just under 2 years away. So if you want to introduce some young players, if you want to give the team a different look, you've got the window of opportunity to still do that going into 2026.
Yeah, I think too, when you think about things all in wheels, it's like everything that was coming out of that camp was this game against the US. This is our time to really test them or test what we have in the group. And when I think about it and think back to that match, there weren't many players that really answered that call. And for me, it's not that you lose, it's how you lose. If you go down swinging and playing with desire, and there's fight and there's a clear identity of how you want it to play, then sometimes you take that loss, 2-1 or whatever. In every parameter, the US were far better than Canada. Night and day. It was a different type of match. And when you play up that type of match and say, this is going to be the day that we actually get things going, and you fail and fall short, I think Stoney has every right to be hard on the group. The thing is, you've had new players that have come in and have gotten their cap and are trying to get acclimated to the women's national team. But the big dogs, the stars, Ollie, Wheels, remember that day? They weren't on it, meaning the Gilles, Lawrence, Adriana Leon, like players that have carried this team in large spells weren't there on the day. So I like that Stoney kind of took that stand, because the younger players are only going to look up to the older players. They're the ones to set the barometer of how things should be at training, on match day. And I like that Stoney kind of stepped in and said, look, if we're going to play for Canada and we're going to go and compete, we have to make sure that we're there all the time. And they weren't that day. So hopefully this camp is different.
Yeah, two very different games upcoming in this window. Should beat Switzerland. Netherlands, a much better opponent. So we'll see how she navigates and uses her squad. The biggest highlight, or the biggest spotlight and reason to watch, is Olivia Smith, right? Like that's the player everyone wants to see. It seems like right now she is the one difference maker for Canada, or potential difference maker. Isn't that how this window needs to be looked at, is how Olivia Smith works in this team and how the team works around her? Ollie, it seems rather straightforward, but it's a player who obviously has exceptional talent and ability and promise, but simply hasn't been available due to injury and absence for the national team. The fact that she's back in kind of maybe mitigates some of the other potential losses, like Kadisha Buchanan. I know different positions, but these are influential players with a team I just felt in recent windows have lacked any kind of influence, or someone that could put their foot on the ball and take control of the game.
Well, I think they're still basically starting from scratch in terms of how they build a functioning attack here. And starting with how do you get the best out of Olivia Smith is as good a place to start as any, right? Like, yeah. I think Casey Stoney tried to play a front two in the early games with this team. Didn't really work. I don't know that she has the options in terms of natural forwards to make that the best option for this team. So she's gone back to one with some supporting attacking midfielders. I think you'll see Smith in that kind of role, whether it's as a 10 or as on the right-hand sides. And I think you're kind of building around that. It's Smith on one side. It's probably still Adriana Leon, I think, as much as maybe it wasn't her best night against the US, probably been the most consistent other forward in this team. And then you're kind of filling in the blanks. Does Jessie Fleming play a bit higher up, or do you like her deeper? Who's the number 9 going to be? Still a ton of questions, I think, to answer. But Smith, certainly has to be central to any kind of attacking plan you have.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing because I think similar to how we talk about the men and like who plays with Jay David, it's the same with like who plays with Smith. Like, how do you get the best out of her and free up her to be in that pocket and in that role? Because she can shoot from distance. She's a very clever footballer. She has a strong IQ. But again, she's also someone who looks to play and combine with players around her. She's not going to just get the ball and dribble. I've seen Olivia Smith play like that, and you don't get the most out of her. When she plays the quote-unquote right way, that's when she really comes into form. So is it Heidema? Kaylee Hunter from AFC, is she going to make some noise going into camp, and is she going to get some burn? Like, that's a shout as well. So you just look at different situations that Stoney has to figure out over this week time. But I think it's going to be a good test. As you said, Wheels, Switzerland you should run through, and the Netherlands will be more of a chess match. But still, I want to see a Canadian side that says, we're still one of the top 10 teams in FIFA rankings, and we're hard to play against. So hopefully this is the time where the players step up.
Okay, so that's the good news. The bad news, Kadisha Buchanan's injury setback. How big of a blow is this for Canada, Jordan?
Huge. I've joked with Stoney a little bit about, okay, when Khadija comes back, you have to play like a back three. Like it's inevitable. You can't have Gilles, Jade Rose, and Khadija.
You're not joking.
You can't put one of them.
You're strongly suggesting.
I'm hinting and nudging. I'm going with the elbow like this hard. I'm like, but all jokes aside is because, one, we've seen how well they play together. Two, it's just you can't have so many strong CBs like this and one of them be on the bench. But you're just waiting for Khadija to come back and show her leadership and just that calm, that poise that she has on the ball, that poise that she has when she defends. This is a huge blow because it doesn't allow maybe another option or for Stoney to play around with certain things. As much as Chavoshi and there's other defenders, Zadorsky, that you rate, does it really suit them to be in the 3? I don't think so. But with Khadija, it was clear cut that you could play a different way and bring her into the lineup and you knew what you're going to get. So, yeah, it's a huge blow. There's still time, but obviously it's not good to hear one of your best players and star players and veterans to have a little bit more time on the injured list.
Yeah, she's been a top player for so long, Ollie.
Yeah,
she has, and you just worry about kind of the overall length of the recovery process here, right? And having another setback from such a major injury, what does that do to a player long term? That would be the big concern for me is not getting Kadisha Buchanan back at the peak of her powers, as opposed to how the team is going to fare in the short term without her. Now, I think they'll be okay. Vanessa Gilles is out this window, so it's going to be a challenge this window, no question. But the big thing that's changed over the past year or so is Jade Rose has emerged as a top quality player and now playing at a top quality club in the women's game as well. So you're a bit better covered there than you were. You've got a ton of options at fullback, and obviously Sydney Collins back now, which is huge for them as well. Yeah, so I think when Gilles is there, they're okay in terms of their defensive options. But obviously, Kadisha Buchanan at her best is a world-class defender who makes any team better.
When any squad drops for Canada or any other nation, it's all about who's in and who's out. And I always get a little bit uncomfortable with the players who end up being out because they're in the conversation of being the last among the group anyways. Fringe players that are potentially fighting for a role. So NSL star Pridham was left off out of the squad this time around. Can you justify it? Does it make sense? Or should she have been called up by Casey Stoney, Ollie?
Well, it was interesting to listen to her talk about this because she has called up a few NSL players, obviously Emma Regan, Kaylee Hunter, Holly Wards, all in the squads. But she kind of justified it as saying that she was willing to call up NSL midfielders because she's going to use Hunter, she said, as a number 10, but not forwards, which, I'm not quite sure what the discrepancy is there. But she also said she doesn't view the NSL, she said quite bluntly, as a top league or a top 5 league in the world right now. And obviously it's going to have to grow to that point as much as there's a lot of investment being poured into it. So yeah, that was an interesting perspective to hear from the coach. Pridham's got 18 goals this season. She's been the runaway top scorer in the NSL. I do think there's a lot of pressure on some of those forwards who are in the squads. Like Nichelle Prince is not playing a ton of minutes with her club right now. She's not playing as a striker with her club either, which is generally her role with Canada. Evelyn Vienne, it's kind of been like, you're hoping for a little bit more at this point, as much as people have been dying to see her get more of an opportunity. I'm not sure it's quite happens when she has. Jordan Heitema, same kind of thing. So I do think that, someone's got to step up and start putting the ball in the back of the net, or at least looking like a consistent option at that number 9 position. Or you do have to start asking if the manager should be a bit more experimental and take someone who is scoring goals at the club level, even if you perceive it to be a lower level than other players are playing at.
I think Stoney has a way that she wants to play, and I think obviously Pridham having a successful year in the NSL, you can look at her and be like, does she fit the mold of what I want to do moving forward? I also think this is probably, you kind of alluded to this, Ollie, a little bit. This probably has to be some of the last chances for certain strikers. You don't even need to say names. You've already gone over them. Like, Casey Stoney has given a plethora, like bountiful options for these players to go and show that they want to take that spot, and no one really has. And I think when everything is pretty much solidified in terms of defenders, midfielders, it's really just that number 9 position where you're like, who is going to just separate themselves from the rest? I think Stoney has a lot on the table to maybe bring someone else in. As you already said about Kaylee Hunter, that she can be a bit versatile, and you know what you get as a young player maybe moving forward. That Pridham probably just missed the mark by 1 or 2 spots.
Afternoon football. Canadian style. Friday against the Swiss, Tuesday against the Dutch. Both you can watch right here on OneSoccer.